Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! The curtain fell on another day of rehearsals, and Judah sighed heavily as he slumped into a worn chair backstage. The empty auditorium echoed with the ghosts of forgotten lines and missed cues. Running a hand through his disheveled hair, he stared at the script clutched in his other hand, the pages dog-eared and marked with countless notes. "This is a disaster," he muttered to himself, flipping through the pages for what felt like the 100th time that day. The school's production of The Importance of Being Earnest was barely hanging on by a thread. With opening night just 3 weeks away, Judah found himself facing a crisis he'd never encountered in his 15 years of teaching drama. His lead actress, a talented senior named Melissa, had unexpectedly dropped out of the play due to a family emergency. Her understudy, while enthusiastic, simply didn't have the comedic timing or stage presence to carry the pivotal role of Lady Bracknell. Judah closed his eyes, trying to push away the creeping tendrils of panic. He'd poured his heart and soul into this production, seeing it as a chance to breathe new life into the classic Oscar Wilde play. Now, it seemed destined to become a laughingstock rather than the triumph he'd envisioned. A soft knock on the backstage door jolted him from his brooding. "Come in," he called out, straightening up in his chair. The door creaked open, revealing the worried face of his assistant director, Emma. She stepped inside, her brow furrowed with concern. "Any luck finding a replacement?" she asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Judah shook his head, letting out a rueful chuckle. "Unless we can conjure up a seasoned actress in the next 5 minutes, I think we're out of options." Emma leaned against a nearby prop table, her fingers idly tracing the outline of a fake teacup. "What about Mrs. Hendricks from the English department? She used to do community theater." "Already asked," Judah replied, ticking off names on his fingers. "Along with every other female staff member, the librarian, and even the lunch ladies. No one's available or willing to take on such a big role on such short notice." A heavy silence fell between them, broken only by the distant sound of the janitor's vacuum in the hallway. Emma's eyes darted around the cluttered backstage area, as if searching for inspiration among the costume racks and paint cans. Suddenly, her gaze locked onto something, and a mischievous glint appeared in her eyes. "You know," she said slowly, a smile tugging at the corners of her mouth, "there is one person we haven't considered yet." Judah followed her line of sight, confusion etched across his face. "Who?" Emma's smile widened as she pointed directly at him. "You!" For a moment, Judah could only stare at her, certain he'd misheard. "Me?" he sputtered, gesturing to himself with an incredulous laugh. "You can't be serious." "Why not?" Emma pressed, her excitement growing. "You know the play inside and out. You've been coaching these kids for weeks. Who better to step in and save the day?" Judah stood up, pacing back and forth as he processed the idea. "Emma, I'm a man. Lady Bracknell is, well, a lady. It's ridiculous." "Is it, though?" Emma countered, following him with her eyes. "Men played women's roles in Shakespeare's time, and let's not forget about drag performances. It could add a whole new layer of comedy to the play." Judah paused mid-stride, considering her words. It was true that he knew every line, every inflection needed for the role. And with the right costume and makeup, he shook his head, trying to dismiss the idea. The school board would never approve. Emma waved her hand dismissively. We'll pitch it as an artistic choice, a commentary on gender roles in Victorian society. They'll eat it up." Despite himself, Judah felt a spark of excitement ignite in his chest. It was crazy, absolutely insane, but it just might work. He turned to face Emma, a tentative smile playing on his lips. "You really think I could pull it off?" Emma's answering grin was all the confirmation he needed. "Oh, honey," she said, affecting a posh accent. "You're going to be absolutely fabulous." The next few days passed in a whirlwind of activity. Judah threw himself into preparing for the role with the same fervor he'd always demanded of his students. He spent hours practicing Lady Bracknell's lines in front of the mirror, experimenting with different vocal inflections and mannerisms. The costume department worked overtime to alter one of the backup dresses to fit his larger frame. Judah found himself standing still for what felt like eternity as the school's longtime costumer, Mrs. Patel, fussed over him with pins and measuring tape. "Hold still, dear," she chided gently as she adjusted the hem of the floor-length gown. "We want you looking like a proper lady, not some tavern wench." Judah couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of the situation. Here he was, a 42-year-old man with a 5 o'clock shadow, being fitted for a corset and petticoats. "Mrs. Patel," he said, trying not to move his arms as she pinned the sleeves. "Do you think this is completely mad?" The older woman paused in her work, looking up at him with a twinkle in her eye. "Oh, probably," she admitted with a laugh. "But sometimes a little madness is exactly what the theater needs. Now, let's see about getting you a proper wig, shall we?" As the days wore on, Judah found himself becoming increasingly comfortable in his new role, both on and off stage. The initial awkwardness of wearing heels and a corset gave way to a strange sense of liberation. There was something freeing about stepping into someone else's shoes, quite literally in this case. The students, after their initial shock and amusement, threw themselves into rehearsals with renewed enthusiasm. Judah's willingness to go all out for the sake of the play seemed to inspire them, pushing them to new heights of performance. One afternoon, as Judah was practicing his walk in full costume backstage, he overheard two of his students talking just outside the door. "I can't believe Mr. Klein is actually doing this," one voice said, tinged with admiration. "It's kind of awesome, isn't it?" "Totally," the other replied. "I mean, who knew he had it in him? He's killing it as Lady Bracknell." Judah felt a warm glow of pride at their words. He'd always tried to instill in his students the importance of taking risks and pushing boundaries in their art. Now, he was living that lesson in the most unexpected way possible. As opening night drew nearer, Judah found himself spending more and more time as Lady Bracknell, or Amelia, as he'd taken to calling his feminine persona. Even when he wasn't in costume, he'd catch himself adopting some of her mannerisms or turns of phrase. One evening, after a particularly grueling dress rehearsal, Judah sat in front of the dressing room mirror, slowly removing his makeup. As he wiped away the last traces of lipstick, he paused, studying his reflection. For a moment, he could still see traces of Amelia in his features, the arch of his brow, the set of his jaw. It was as if she'd left an imprint on him, one that didn't disappear entirely with the makeup. A knock on the door startled him from his reverie. "Come in," he called out, quickly finishing up with the makeup remover. Emma poked her head in, a stack of papers in her hand. "Great rehearsal tonight," she said, stepping inside. "I think we're really—" She trailed off, noticing the contemplative look on Judah's face. "Everything okay?" Judah nodded, offering her a small smile. "Just thinking," he said, gesturing vaguely at the mirror.
This whole experience, it's been more intense than I expected.
Emma perched on the edge of a nearby chair, her expression softening.
In what way?
Judah struggled to find the right words. It's like, when I'm Amelia, I feel this sense of freedom. Like I can be parts of myself that I've always kept hidden. He let out a self-deprecating laugh. That probably sounds ridiculous. Not at all, Emma said gently. Gender and identity are complex things. Maybe this role is allowing you to explore aspects of yourself you never had the chance to before. Judah nodded slowly, mulling over her words. I just never thought, at my age, that I'd be questioning these things. Emma reached out, giving his shoulder a supportive squeeze. There's no expiration date on self-discovery, Judah. Whatever you're feeling, it's valid. They sat in companionable silence for a moment, the weight of the conversation hanging between them. Finally, Emma stood up, gathering her papers. Just remember, she said, as she headed for the door, no matter who you are, Judah or Amelia, you're an amazing person and a fantastic teacher. That's what matters most. As the door closed behind her, Judah turned back to the mirror, studying his reflection once more. For the first time, he allowed himself to really see the person staring back at him. Not just Judah, the drama teacher, or Amelia, the character, but someone in between. Someone new and yet familiar all at once. With a deep breath, he stood up, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, both on stage and off. The next few weeks flew by in a blur of final rehearsals and last-minute preparations. Judah found himself diving deeper into the role of Amelia, not just during rehearsals, but in his everyday life as well. He started paying more attention to the way women carried themselves, the subtle differences in their mannerisms and speech patterns. At home, he experimented with different ways of presenting himself. He ordered a few items of women's clothing online, trying them on in the privacy of his apartment. The first time he saw himself fully dressed as Amelia outside of the play's costume, he felt a rush of emotions, excitement, fear, and a profound sense of rightness that both thrilled and terrified him. As opening night approached, Judah's dual life began to bleed into his teaching. He found himself incorporating more discussions about gender and identity into his drama classes, encouraging his students to explore roles that challenged their preconceptions. One day, after a particularly spirited class discussion about gender representation in theater, a student named Alex lingered behind. Judah noticed the teenager fidgeting nervously with the strap of their backpack. "Everything all right, Alex?" Judah asked, concern coloring his voice. Alex took a deep breath before speaking.
"Mr. Klein, I wanted to thank you for what you're doing with the play,
Judah tilted his head, curious.
Oh? How so?
It's just... Alex paused, searching for the right words.
Seeing you take on this role, it's made me feel braver about exploring my own identity.
The student's voice dropped to almost a whisper.
I've been questioning my gender for a while now, and watching you embrace this part of yourself, it's inspiring.
Judah felt a lump form in his throat, deeply moved by Alex's confession.
Thank you for sharing that with me, Alex, he said softly. I want you to know that you're not alone, and that this classroom is always a safe space for you to be yourself.
Alex's face lit up with a relieved smile. Thanks, Mr. Klein. That means a lot. As Alex left the classroom, Judah sat down heavily in his chair, overwhelmed by the impact his actions were having. He'd started this journey to save a play, but it was becoming clear that the ripple effects extended far beyond the stage. The night before the play's opening, Judah found himself unable to sleep. He tossed and turned, his mind racing with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Finally, giving up on rest, he got out of bed and padded to his closet. With trembling hands, he pulled out the dress he'd bought for himself. A simple, elegant black number that was worlds away from Lady Bracknell's ornate Victorian gowns. He slipped it on, relishing the feel of the soft fabric against his skin. Standing in front of the full-length mirror, Judah, or perhaps Amelia, took a deep breath.
"Hello,"
he whispered to his reflection, his voice soft and tentative.
I think I'm ready to meet you properly."
As dawn broke, Judah made a decision. He couldn't keep Amelia confined to the stage or the privacy of his home any longer. With nervous excitement, he began to prepare for the day ahead. When Judah arrived at school that morning, he was dressed in a tasteful blouse and skirt, with subtle makeup enhancing his features. He'd spent hours the night before practicing walking in heels, determined to move with confidence. The halls fell silent as he walked to his classroom, students and teachers alike staring in shock and confusion. Judah held his head high, even as he felt his heart pounding in his chest. As he reached his classroom door, he saw Emma rushing towards him, concern etched on her face.
"Judah?"
she hissed, glancing around nervously. "What are you doing?" Judah took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders.
"I'm being true to myself, Emma. For the first time in my life."
Emma's expression softened, a mix of worry and pride in her eyes.
"Are you sure about this? The school board—"
"We'll have to deal with it,"
Judah finished firmly.
"I can't hide anymore. This is who I am."
Before Emma could respond, the principal's voice crackled over the intercom.
"Mr. Klein, please report to my office immediately."
Judah exchanged a look with Emma, both of them knowing the storm that was about to break.
"Wish me luck,"
he said with a wry smile. "Break a leg," Emma replied, squeezing his hand supportively. As Judah made his way to the principal's office, he felt a strange calm settle over him. Whatever happened next, he knew he was finally on the right path. The role of Amelia had started as a way to save a play, but it had become so much more. A gateway to self-discovery, acceptance, and the courage to live authentically. Judah Klein, drama teacher and newly awakened woman, took a deep breath and knocked on the principal's door. The next act of her life was about to begin, and she was ready to face it head on. The principal's office was eerily quiet as Judah stepped inside, the only sound the soft click of his heels against the polished floor. Principal Thornton sat behind her desk, her face a mask of carefully controlled neutrality. "Have a seat, Mr. Klein," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her. Judah settled into the chair, smoothing his skirt as he did so.
"I think, given the circumstances, Ms.
Klein might be more appropriate,"
he said, his voice steady despite the nerves fluttering in his stomach. Principal Thornton's eyebrows rose slightly, but she nodded.
"Very well, Ms. Klein. I think it's clear why I've called you in here today."
"I can imagine," Judah replied, maintaining eye contact.
"But I'd like to explain, if I may."
The principal leaned back in her chair, folding her hands on the desk.
"By all means."
Judah took a deep breath,
gathering his thoughts.
What started as a solution to our casting problem has become something much more significant. Through portraying Amelia, I have discovered a part of myself that I have suppressed for years. I know this is sudden and unexpected, but I can't continue living a lie. This is who I am.
Principal Thornton listened silently, her expression unreadable. When Judah finished speaking, she remained quiet for a long moment. Finally, she let out a heavy sigh. Judah, Ms. Klein, I appreciate your honesty, but you must understand the position this puts the school in. We have policies, parents to consider. With all due respect, Judah interjected, leaning forward slightly. Isn't it our job as educators to teach acceptance and understanding? To show our students that it's okay to be who they truly are? The principal's lips thinned, but there was a flicker of something, perhaps understanding, in her eyes. It's not that simple, and you know it. There will be pushback, complaints. Then we face them head on, Judah said firmly. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to continue teaching here as my authentic self. I believe I have that right. Principal Thornton was quiet for a moment, studying Judah intently. You've always been one of our most dedicated teachers, she said finally. Your students adore you, but this is uncharted territory for our school. Judah nodded, understanding the complexity of the situation. I know it won't be easy, but I'm willing to work with you, with the school board, to find a way forward. All I'm asking for is the chance to be myself and continue doing the job I love. The principal drummed her fingers on the desk, clearly weighing her options. I can't make any promises, she said at last. But I'll speak with the board. In the meantime, the show must go on, as they say. You have a play to put on tonight. Judah felt a wave of relief wash over him. It wasn't acceptance, not yet, but it was a start. Thank you, he said sincerely. You won't regret giving me this chance. As he stood to leave, Principal Thornton called out, Judah! Ms. Klein! He turned back, one hand on the doorknob. Good luck tonight. Break a leg. Judah smiled, nodding gratefully before stepping out into the hallway. The first hurdle had been cleared, but he knew there would be many more to come. The rest of the day passed in a blur of whispers and stares. Judah did his best to carry on as normal, focusing on last-minute preparations for the play. His students, to their credit, rallied around him. There were a few giggles and shocked looks at first, but by the end of the day, most of them were treating him with the same respect and enthusiasm as always. As the final bell rang, Judah made his way to the auditorium, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nerves. This performance was no longer just about saving a play. It was about embracing his true self in front of the entire school community. In the dressing room, as he transformed into Lady Bracknell, Judah felt a sense of calm wash over him. The costume that had once felt like a disguise now felt like armor, protecting the newfound truth of who he was. Emma poked her head in, a supportive smile on her face. How are you holding up? She asked, stepping inside and closing the door behind her. Judah turned to face her, fully dressed in Lady Bracknell's elaborate gown. Surprisingly well, he admitted. I thought I'd be more nervous, but this feels right. Emma's smile widened. You look amazing, she said sincerely. And for what it's worth, I'm proud of you. It takes a lot of courage to do what you're doing. Judah felt a lump form in his throat, touched by her words. Thank you, Emma. I couldn't have done this without your support. They shared a brief hug before Emma pulled back, checking her watch.
Curtains in 10 minutes. You ready to knock 'em dead?
Judah took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders.
Ready as I'll ever be.
As he made his way backstage, Judah could hear the excited murmur of the audience filing into the auditorium. He peeked through a gap in the curtain, spotting familiar faces, students, parents, fellow teachers. His heart skipped a beat as he saw Principal Thornton take her seat in the front row. The lights dimmed, and a hush fell over the crowd. Judah closed his eyes, taking one last deep breath. In that moment, he wasn't just Judah or Amelia or Lady Bracknell. He was all of them, every facet of his identity coming together in perfect harmony. As the curtain rose and the play began, Judah stepped onto the stage with confidence. His performance as Lady Bracknell was met with laughter and applause, the audience clearly appreciating the humor and heart he brought to the role. During the intermission, Judah overheard snippets of conversation from the audience. "I can't believe that's Mr. Klein! He's absolutely hilarious as Lady Bracknell. Did you see how he came to school today? Do you think—" Judah smiled to himself, touched by the mix of admiration and curiosity in their voices. He knew there would be challenges ahead, but for now, he was exactly where he needed to be, on stage, sharing his art and his truth with the world. As the final curtain fell and the cast took their bows, the auditorium erupted in a standing ovation. Judah felt tears prick at his eyes as he looked out at the sea of smiling faces. In that moment, he knew that no matter what obstacles lay ahead, he had the strength to face them. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of meetings, discussions, and adjustments. The school board, while initially hesitant, eventually agreed to support Judah's transition, implementing new policies to ensure a safe and inclusive environment for all students and staff. There were, of course, some parents who objected, but Judah was heartened to see how many students and families rallied to his defense. The drama department, in particular, became a haven of acceptance and support. As the dust settled, Judah, now officially going by Amelia both in and out of school, found herself settling into her new life with a sense of peace she'd never known before. Her classes were as popular as ever, with students seeming to appreciate her even more for her authenticity and courage. One afternoon, as Amelia was packing up after a particularly inspiring lesson on gender representation in modern theater, she noticed Alex lingering by her desk. "Everything okay, Alex?" she asked, concerned by the student's nervous demeanor. Alex took a deep breath before speaking. "Ms. Klein, I wanted to thank you again. Seeing you be true to yourself, it gave me the courage to come out to my parents as non-binary." Amelia felt a rush of emotion, remembering their conversation from weeks ago. "Oh, Alex," she said softly. "I'm so proud of you. How did it go?" A smile broke across Alex's face. "It was scary, but they're trying to understand. They even asked about using my preferred pronouns." Amelia reached out, giving Alex's shoulder a supportive squeeze. "That's wonderful. Remember, you have a whole community here supporting you, okay?" As Alex left the classroom with a spring in their step, Amelia felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over her. What had started as a desperate attempt to save a school play had turned into a journey of self-discovery, not just for her, but for her students as well. She glanced at the framed photo on her desk, a candid shot from opening night, capturing her mid-laugh as Lady Bracknell. Next to it stood a more recent picture of her as Amelia, surrounded by her beaming drama students. With a contented sigh, Amelia gathered her things and headed for the door. She had a life to live, students to inspire, and a world of possibilities ahead of her. The curtain had risen on a new act in her life, and she couldn't wait to see where it would lead. As she stepped out into the warm afternoon sun, Amelia Klein, teacher, actress, and woman, felt truly at home in her own skin for the first time in her life. The journey had been unexpected and at times difficult, but standing here now, she knew without a doubt that it had been worth every step. The end of the school year brought with it a sense of reflection and anticipation. Amelia found herself marveling at how much had changed in just a few short months. As she sat in her classroom, surrounded by the colorful remnants of a year's worth of productions and projects, she couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. The drama department had flourished under her guidance, with more students than ever signing up for classes and auditioning for plays. Her own journey had inspired a wave of creativity and self-expression among her students, leading to some of the most powerful and moving performances the school had ever seen. As she packed up the last of her belongings, preparing for the summer break, there was a knock at her door. She looked up to see Principal Thornton standing in the doorway, a small smile on her face.
"Got a minute, Amelia?"
the principal asked, stepping into the room. Amelia nodded, gesturing for her to take a seat. "Of course. What can I do for you?" Principal Thornton settled into a nearby chair, her expression thoughtful. "I wanted to talk to you about next year," she began.
"The board and I have been discussing ways to make our school more inclusive, and, well, we'd like your input."
Amelia felt a flutter of excitement in her chest. "I'd be happy to help in any way I can. We're thinking of implementing a more comprehensive LGBTQ+ education program," the principal continued. "Not just in health classes, but across all subjects. We were hoping you might be willing to take the lead on developing the curriculum for the arts department." Amelia's eyes widened in surprise and delight. I'd be honored," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for trusting me with this." Principal Thornton's smile widened. "You've shown incredible strength and grace throughout this year, Amelia. The positive impact you've had on our students is undeniable. We're lucky to have you." As the principal left, Amelia sat back in her chair, overwhelmed by the opportunity presented to her. She thought of all the students like Alex, struggling to find themselves in a world that often seemed designed to box them in. With this new program, she could help create a space where every student felt seen, understood, and valued. The summer passed quickly, filled with research, planning, and collaboration with other teachers and LGBTQ+ organizations. Amelia threw herself into the work, determined to create a curriculum that would not only educate, but inspire. When the new school year began, Amelia stood before her first drama class with a sense of renewed purpose. The faces looking back at her were a mix of familiar and new, all eager to see what the year would bring. "Welcome, everyone," she began, her voice strong and clear. "This year, we're going to explore not just the art of performance, but the power of storytelling to shape our understanding of ourselves and others. We'll be looking at plays and performers that challenge traditional notions of gender and identity, and creating our own works that reflect the beautiful diversity of human experience." As she spoke, Amelia could see the spark of excitement in her students' eyes. She knew that the journey ahead would not always be easy. There would be challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But looking at the bright, open faces before her, she felt a surge of hope for the future. In that moment, Amelia Klein, teacher, activist, and proud transgender woman, knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The stage was set, the lights were up, and she was ready to help write a new, more inclusive script for the next generation. As the lesson began and ideas started flowing, Amelia felt a deep sense of gratitude wash over her. What had started as a desperate act to save a school play had led her to this moment, standing proudly as her true self, empowered to make a real difference in the lives of her students. The journey of self-discovery and acceptance was ongoing, but Amelia knew she had found her calling. With each class, each performance, and each student she helped, she was building a legacy of understanding and empathy that would ripple out far beyond the walls of her classroom. As the bell rang and her students filed out, chattering excitedly about the projects to come, Amelia smiled to herself. The show, as they say, must go on, and she couldn't wait to see what the next act would bring.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!